Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another 21st Century Renaissance and another open interest newsletter breakdown on GameStop. I'm your host, Dr. Michael LoPiano, and yeah, we are back. We are back and on a new camera system. Just got tired of all those issues with platforming and iPhone integration and stuff like that, so went ahead and bought a new camera. So hopefully this looks good. You guys can let me know in the comments. Yeah, today we're going to be taking a look at what we can expect going into OPEX, thinking a bit about what is going on with these two options chains as we have over the past couple of days. And yeah, thinking about what sort of effect that's going to have here on our price action, taking a look a little bit at our technicals as we do so. That's coming up today. We are also going to spend some time thinking about what is going on here with these genealogies, continuing to think about the descendants of Adam and the vision that it seems that the book of Genesis, the book of becoming, is suggesting is necessary in order to have the proper view of who exactly we are as human beings in the context of this place called creation. So that's coming up today. We will turn our attention first and foremost over to our biblical discussion for today. And yeah, we're picking up with Genesis 5, right? Sort of the tail end here of Genesis 4 started to get into the idea of descent and of descendants. Of course, at the beginning of Genesis 4, we have this, the first murder. We have the murder. Cain, the eldest son of Adam, murders Abel, the younger son of Adam. Out of envy, right? Out of a spirit of something like projecting outward one's frustration over an unwillingness to accept the world as it is, to do what is best, to do what we know to be right. Sort of continuation of this rebellion to harbor something of a resentment over the fact that we ourselves are not God, even though we may wish ourselves to be in that place. So we get this sort of sense of descent as we looked at last week, and we talked about how this particular lineage that descends from Cain also brings about several institutions which are familiar to our world. So Cain, of course, as he goes from his murder, he founds a city. And his descendants invent things like weapons of war, right? They discover metallurgy, and they discover right, all sorts of manner of technology. They also are the first of humankind to go ahead and start living a polygynous life, something that is totally outside of the original state of creation. And that is the claim thus far we get of the descendants of Cain, that the descendants of Cain, although they have this ability to increase, to multiply, to be fruitful over time, it is their amplification of that original sin of Adam which comes forth from the descent of Cain. And so, but we do learn in Genesis 4, there is a statement that Eve becomes pregnant once more with a child by Adam, and she gives birth to Seth. And here we have the descendants of Seth. So we'll take a look. We won't read this exhaustively. It is quite a lot of repetition here, but it's worth taking into account how important thinking about humankind and descent, thinking about this vision over time is for the people who lived as such to compose this first book of the biblical canon. So we have, this is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam in the day when they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness after his image, called his name Seth. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. And Seth lived 105 years and begot Enos, or Enos. And Seth lived after he begot Enos 807 years and begat sons and daughters. All the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. And Enos lived 90 years and begot Canaan. And Enos lived after he begat Canaan 815 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enos were 905 years, and he died. So we see a pattern here. Canaan lived 70 years, begat Mahalalel. Mahalalel lived 65 years when he begot Jared. He lived 830 years. Jared lived 162 years. He begot Enoch. Enoch lived 65 years, then he begat Methuselah. Enoch walked with God, and he begat Methuselah 300 years and begat sons and daughters, right? And then Methuselah lives 87 years and begat Lamech. Lamech lived 182 years and begat a son. This is where the pattern deviates. He called his name Noah, saying, the same, that is, this Noah, shall comfort us concerning our work, the toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. And Lamech lived after he begat Noah 595 years and begat sons and daughters, and all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So, what is first noticeable right about this story? Perhaps the first thing that may show up as something of an anomaly here is the fact that we actually have some similar names to the lineage of Cain. You'll recall, of course, that Lamech was the name of the descendant of one of the descendants of Cain, who was the first to adopt polygyny, to take multiple wives. He was a man of great rage and vengeance. I have killed a man for wounding me. I have slain a young man to my hurt. So goes the parallelism. And the implication here is that his curse, that is the curse that would come to him who would murder Lamech, would be a curse 77 times worse, right? So there's by a factor of 10, is any vendetta visited against Lamech to be visited against that perpetrator. Yeah, so there's an idea here of vengeance, of vendetta, of this kind of building, right? You do something bad, I return you something even worse, you return me something even worse. So, right, Cain commits an evil act, and whoever should commit an evil act, that is to try to murder Cain, to take vengeance upon him, would have vengeance sevenfold brought there in return. But in the case of Lamech, the descent of Cain, we have 77 times brought. So whatever it is, however it is that Lamech has lived, to visit vengeance upon him would cause a 10-fold increase relative to that type of vengeance that would be visited upon anyone who might have attempted vendetta against Cain. All right, now what's noticeable here, right, is the recurrence of this number 7. I mean, it happens a lot in the Bible, but it is somewhat curious to see that Lamech himself, in all of the days that he lived 777 years. Very curious, right? To have a curse 77 times worse than Cain's, and to have Lamech himself, however, another Lamech, a second Lamech, this time in the line of Seth, the father of Noah, lived 777 years. Also, be reminiscent of this curse, this initial curse that God has given to the sons of Adam, to Adam and to all his descendants, for having committed the original sin. Interesting here. We also have a Methuselah. In the line of Cain, the father of Lamech is Methusael. Very close. Not quite the same name, but very close. We also have an Enoch, right? The ancestor of Methuselah is Enoch. We also have an Enoch in the line of Cain. And just prior to Cain, okay, we have Jared, who doesn't show up. We have Mahalalel, who doesn't show up. But we also have a Canaan, right? So we also have something very similar to Cain in this line of descent, the descent from Seth. So another element about the story, right, is we actually have a third creation account, right, that actually goes back in some ways to the very first creation account we get. Namely, right, we get, this is the book of the generations of Adam. Well, this is the book of the generations of Adam. Are we already reading the book of the generations of Adam? Why does this need to be restated? In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God, he made him. We know this. Male and female, he created him. This is said, of course, in Genesis 1. And blessed them and called that their name Adam. So the women are called Adam too. Very interesting. In the day when they were created. So we get this little brief thing here. So what's going on here? Right. There are numerous, right? What this shows is evidence of addition. There are multiple stories that primarily originate in oral tradition that are being combined, that are being brought together to try to make sense of this original state of mankind. The knowledge is not perfect. It is scattered. There are variations in the way that the story is told, but there are elements of commonality between them. So what have the editors done? Those who compiled this book of becoming? Well, rather than make a choice, rather than say, well, this one is true and this one is not, this is authoritative and this one is not, they say, well, we're not sure, but we know that these are important. We know that the truth is somewhere here in the middle, and there is wisdom that is contained in these stories that ought not be lost. And so they're provided, right? They're both provided. So we can see these kind of multiple traditions weaving here. We have one tradition that says likely that Cain and that Methuselah and that Lamech are descended directly from Adam, that Adam had two sons, Cain and Abel. The good one was killed, and we are all descendants of Adam. Noah being the son of Lamech, and all of us being, as we will see, the sons of Noah, descended from Noah, a sort of second founder of the world. But there is another tradition that says, well, no, this Abel character doesn't really factor in. There's Adam, and Adam has a son who's Seth, and down the line, Seth has a descendant named Cain. And everything that has to do with Cain comes downstream of that. But the two accounts here don't obviously come out and say this. They try to harmonize. And so what they say is something like, well, we know we have these two accounts, one of them where there was Cain and Abel being the sons of Adam, and another one where Seth is the son of Adam. So perhaps it is likely, perhaps it is the case that Cain and Abel were born, and then Seth was born. And who is to say that there cannot be a repetition of names? I certainly cannot say that there was not a repetition of names. We get something like this. What does this also do? This also provides a setting here at the end of this where we basically have two lineages. We have two parallel lineages upon the earth. We have the sons of Cain, and we have the sons of Seth. Now, there is a duplication here of names, but we don't specifically get in the Sethian lineage here. We don't get a specific statement that the Lamech here is also the Lamech in Cain's lineage. We don't get a saying that Methuselah and Methusael are the same. We don't get a statement saying that Cainan and Caina are the same, although they are similar, right? The English transmits them as two different names. I have to check what the Septuagint has, right? The Hebdomekanta, the Greek translation. That N ending there feels very Greek to me. But in any case, right? What this is attempting to say, right, is there are multiple lineages that come upon the earth, and the result of these two lineages is different. As we will see going forward, we will come and we will see Noah. We will see the life of Noah. We'll see the setup of Noah. This lineage sets up Noah. And what we will see, of course, from the life of Noah is something that is different from the descendants of Cain to a certain extent. Noah lives his life differently. And part of the suggestion here is that Noah lives his life differently because Seth lives his life differently, right? Noah has as an ancestor Seth, whereas those who populate the world thereafter, right, alongside the lineage of Seth, they take after the example of Cain. They are the descendants of Cain. They are the descendants of Lamech, son of Cain, not Lamech, son of Seth. And that there is something different about these two lineages, something along those lines. But in any case, if we are to sort of peek through some of these textual potential question marks, these erotemata, we can ask ourselves, right? We can say, okay, well, why is it important, right? Why is it important to discuss descent, to discuss a book, to have a book of the generations of Adam? And as I myself reflect on this, I consider, let's say, how we are asked to think about our lives generationally. Very rarely are we asked to think about our lives meaningfully in terms of generations. We have something like a career, marriage, something of the like. And our own progeny, our own sort of local families, but to think beyond grandchildren, maybe even? Not really, right? But this has something very powerful to say, and it says that no, what you do here, I think of right. There's a Marcus Aurelius quote in the movie Gladiator by Ridley Scott, right? What we do here echoes in eternity. So certainly the claim of the book of Genesis is that what you do now, no matter what you do, right, how you live your life, no matter how short, no matter how long, it will have an influence. Some part of it will remain here and continue to affect the way that events unfold, the way that the human species will unfold. That this lay in the hands of Adam, this lay in the hands of Cain, in the hands of Seth and Lamech, their descendants. They choose different ways of being. One of them begets Noah, who ends up saving the world, as we will see, and all life itself by the maintenance of his relationship with God. Whereas another is responsible, the descendants of Lamech, who nonetheless are the sons of God, as we will see, are nonetheless responsible. They themselves bring about the very wrath of God that will seek to wipe out human life from the world. So what decisions you make, what decisions I make, what decisions we all make in this life, they do not simply end. Right? I saw a recent post, someone was quoting Howard Gardner, right? And his scientific theories of multiple intelligence. Even he says, even if I'm wrong, even if this whole multiple intelligence thing turns out to be completely wrong, which 20 years later, yes, indeed, it is not looking good. Life is short, and we only have so many things to do. No, right? Our time on Earth in these bodies is limited, but our life may in fact stretch far beyond this, right? Life, that which has, let's say, efficaciousness, agency, something like that in the world, is not limited to our bodily life. It stretches far, far beyond the bounds of our corporeal form. And Genesis, from its very onset, says that's something that you should probably pay attention to. It's something we all should pay attention to. Certainly, if we desire a better world rather than a lesser world to come into being. So some food for thought this week as we continue on with our reading in the book of Genesis. Let's turn our attention over to GameStop. Think about what we have coming up this week in terms of all of this. Oh, such a very difficult to trade options in this environment. I'll say that. Not super liquid. But we'll discuss that a bit, right? Today's thanks, first and foremost, our gratitude, that is, goes out to Dude McStud for sponsoring today's newsletter and video breakdown, as well as to Not Medical Advice, Kurt Lesko, Cosmotropic, Dayswag52, Cameron DeLeon, Drew Krantz, and Hey Lucky's, aka Faithless Looter, for sponsoring our efforts here on a regular basis. So, right, we keep seeing, right, this bearishness emerge, and yes, right, more or less, this is what we anticipated down from this move going into the end of last week, getting ejected from this bullish regression channel. Something very similar. This is something that institutions went ahead and did to us during our upcycle in fall of last year. So this is a little bit later, our upcycle in November and December, of course, right around Thanksgiving, famously kicking us out of that uptrend. And we're on our way. We were on our way to go lower until the Mr. Roaring Kitty decided to give us a little magic there, or point to a little magic going on in the background, which very rapidly rocketed us back up to $31 from that $26 low. So had this phenomenon take place, we had something similar actually take place in our winter move. So at the end of that cycle, January down into February, we had a little kickback there, but it's a little different. That also was an ejection from our sort of new macro bullish channel that had formed, but a little different. This move really, really reminded me of what they did mid-cycle back in November of last year around Thanksgiving. So we got that right. And of course, as we've been talking about all the way back since, right? All the way back since we talked about the very issuing of these warrants, that warrant issuance was indeed going to be this type of move to the downside, right? We used, brought up during live streams, during videos, we talked about the rocket dividend, special dividend back in March of 2021. We talked about the ape dividend, the special warrant dividend for AMC back in August of 2022. And what happened? Well, in both of those cases, for the rocket dividend, for the AMC ape dividend, we had some significant bullish action up into basically, dividend issuance. I think when we sort of, with the ape dividend, we kind of moved on the flatter side, going from the ex-dividend date into issuance, and then really sold off coming out of issuance. What we have here is we had this pre-move actually, right? So right after the ex-dividend date, or going into the ex-dividend date, we started to move down. And what I think we're seeing here is this continual sell-off related to the warrant dividend issuance here. Now we got really, really close yesterday, right here, to this bottom, right? So this bottom all the way back on the sell-off after the earnings excitement. So then we traded up. This is what ended up forming our bullish regression channel. I think we have maybe one more day of moving down lower. I think really one more until we get to this level. Why? Because I imagine that this kind of historic low is where, let's say, institutions, algorithms, what have you, decided, this with the warrant, this is something like fair value for the stock. So let's pick it up here, right? Because why not go all the way back down to base? Why stop here? Because this is our base pre-earnings information, and this is post-earnings information, right? So this, I would not be surprised, is where we might see a bit of a bottoming, followed by the return of some accumulatory volume there. Additionally, that does line up with our 504-hour moving average. So the two of those, right now it's at 2381. Factoring in after hours, extended hours, and overnight data. So I think today, wishful thinking, of course, I'd love to have, an opportunity for accumulation down all the way down there, right? That would be great, because, right, we know it's GameStop. It's going back up eventually. That's the thing about GameStop. That's the beauty of this thing, right? We know it's going back up eventually. We know the fundamentals are in place. So for me, right, I get excited when I see lows. If I'm seeing 2350, if it goes lower, it goes to 23 again, or 2250 or something like that. all the better, man, right? All the better. That's another opportunity to accumulate more GameStop at a discount, knowing for a fact, right? We know it's going to go back up again. Now, of course, this is not financial advice. I'm not telling you to go out and buy GameStop, but that's my disposition. That's how I feel when I'm in this, right? So, I think there is potential that we use that as a lower reference level. We only got down to kind of like upper 2390s yesterday, so I think maybe we have one more day where we test another set of lows. Of course, is it possible we flaunt this level? It's possible. I would still expect something of a bounce if we do see the 2370-ish, 2371 kind of pop up again. It wasn't after hours level, but nonetheless, that is where we kind of got to where we got picked up and did not return coming off of Q2 earnings. So I would expect then something of, I wouldn't call it a dead cat bounce, but something a little bit more mild or muffled. Maybe even we go back up here to something like, we go back up to where the 200 4-hour moving average is. So something like up to close to 25, but right now it's at 24.83. And then we kind of come out, maybe we trade a little flat and then trade down into October OPEX, which has a composite max pain value right now of around 24.50. A little difficult to try to estimate that, but taking a look at the two different charts, that's more or less where I have it pinned for now. Now, another factor, right? BTC has been on a nice move to the upside very recently, so this has given us some reason to expect that fair value, at least for now, while BTC's price is elevated, may indeed elevate our floor a little bit more than say it was factoring in back a couple weeks ago. So BTC, I think, got down to like 109 or 108, something like that. So that would have, affected our lower bounds there, maybe about 10, 20 cents, something like that. We are starting to see some new options volume come in, right? New OI for this new GME chain. Not quite back to business as usual yet. A little bit, I made this joke saying nature is healing to a certain degree. We do see with options volume right now on the call side, we are skewed at the money. It is 24, 25, 26. The closer we are to the money right now, the more we are skewed in a bearish direction, that is toward the bid and short calls. As we go up 27, 28, 29, 30, we see these strikes. These tend to be more neutral on the part of the options market. Our larger strikes here, 25, 24, 23, over on the put side, are skewed notably toward the S. So these are long puts. What that is saying from our standpoint going into October OPEX, or certainly for the immediate future, short-term traders in the options market are more or less betting against volatility right now, and they are betting, well, they're a little bit, the fact that they're opening long puts means they're not quite short volatility as they would otherwise. In this situation where we might expect, because IV's lower now, it got down to about 57% in Schwab Composite. Overall, it's a little weird because of that warrant chain, the GME 1 chain now. But I will say, right, when we take a look at this chain, it's okay, a little bit more volatility wise, but more or less bearish on the price. Not below, say, too much below where our area is now, but certainly throughout the day yesterday, short term, more or less bearish bets over on that more liquid options chain. So just calling attention to that. Gamma wise, right, still looking at our last meaningful chart on the warrant, right? See, the warrant chain hasn't moved too much because most people can't exit these positions. So they haven't had their warrants. I was just issued my warrants today. They are not priced. I would expect them, let's see, what we can use as a proxy. We can take a look at the October 26th warrant. That's a little difficult now because the spread is tough, but and around this price, 32. Yeah, actually, they're priced not bad. And I think that's why, right, we have a lot of open interest at that level. Why? Because those calls, the 32s out there, which right now are priced probably about at $3.85. That's $3.85 per warrant, should be what we're looking at there. These are going to be used in order to close out other options positions, right? So these are used as a proxy. These are used by institutions in lieu of warrants. I mean, I expect that the non-attached warrant chain is also, what's the non-attached warrant chain here? 16 October 26, what's our pricing? Do you have 32s? Similar. It's got the second highest OI of the entire chain. The highest OI is at 20, but it's got about 600 open contracts at 30. Oh, that's 30, excuse me. No, they haven't been trading that one very much at all. There's only 24. The one with warrants, yes. The one without, not so much yet. And those are down around, so without the warrant, those are priced at about 350. So yeah, that would put the price of a warrant. That puts the price of a warrant at about, or the price of 10 warrants is around 50 something. Yeah. So that's around essentially what those options are priced at. So about $3.75, something like that, $3.75, thereabouts. So that's what we're looking at today. I would imagine we still see some liquidity difficulties in the options market. It is tough to get fills on especially the warrants chain. I would expect that some of those problems will start to alleviate as the warrants themselves become cleared for trading. I imagine some of this delay has to be with internal trading of the warrants. But what I imagine is for those of you who have warrants or who have shares in brokerages that will be issuing them to you, I imagine today's pricing is going to serve as an opportunity for those institutions to go ahead and exit those warrants and to deliver cash that they get by selling them. As a result, today's trading is going to be important for an internal pricing day for many of those institutions. So yeah, be careful as always. Things should smooth out going forward, but I think there's likely enough still cooking in the background to get a little bit more bearishness, and then to see our price more or less controlled under $25 heading into OPEX. Once we get OPEX, there's well over 100,000 contracts open for the October 17 OPEX chain with warrants, GME 1. So getting those off the board, I think, is going to make institutions a little happier. We'll get liquidity kind of coming back here, for trading purposes. So that's what's up for today. Thank you guys as always for watching and listening. Love always. Thank you so much as well. Right, I meant to mention for the birthday wishes. Now that I have a dedicated camera now, and we are not dealing with this integration with my phone camera anymore, you can expect we're going to be back this week with a live stream to recap this week's events and think about what we have coming up next week for OPEX. So do look forward to seeing you guys, of course, in tomorrow's video and this Friday's live stream. Look forward to seeing you guys there. Thanks so much as always, and yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Let's go GME. Take care, everybody.